We but mirror the world.
All the tendencies present in the outer world
are to be found within us.
If we change ourselves,
the tendencies in the world
will also change. This paraphrased quote from Mahatma Gandhi is the basis of the program you are about to hear. I'm Dedelian, and this is Shining Stars, a program dedicated to searching out and bringing attention to individuals and organizations that are fostering positive change within our community and within our world. Thank you for joining me here on Shining Stars. Today I am pleased to welcome into the studio a gentleman who has created a unique resource here in Lansing. It fosters engagement, development, and opportunity within our community. He's a University of Michigan grad with a degree in statistics, and his resume includes a long list of everything from software development to food safety. Locally, he spent 5 years working with the Lansing Economic Development Area Partnership as a gatekeeper for the Business Acceleration Fund, an initiative that has given him a deep understanding of Lansing's entrepreneurial ecosystem. These days, you will very often find him on Eureka Street in an old repurposed church building known as the Fledge. He is the CEO and founder of the Fledge, and his name is Jerry Norris. Jerry, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
I am really looking forward to this. For some reason, over the years, we have run in the same circles, but really never had the chance to sit down and kind of talk. So I'm looking forward to this.
I'm looking forward to it, too.
So you are the founder and the CEO of the Fledge. On your website's mission page, you state that the Fledge works hard to have a zero barrier to entry, which I think is awesome. Take a little bit of time to explain what that means and what the role of the Fledge is here in our community.
Okay. So I think, we say the term radically inclusive. And before I explain what that means to me, it is very, very fundamental to what we have always dreamed of doing. Mm-hmm. And it is a basic tenet that we've, since the first inception of the Fledge, said we must be radically inclusive because our system works because of the diversity and the large crowds that we have that collide with each other and learn things from each other. So radical inclusion to us brings a very big brain to the table. And what we mean by that is, you know things I don't know, I know things you don't know. When you and I are together, our strength is in those differences that we have. And when you start adding 3 people, 4 people, 5 people, mm-hmm. that just goes up exponentially. In fact, the factorials that will happen in these complex kind of crowds and relationships. And radical inclusion to me means if my back is to the door and somebody walks in and says, "Can I say yes as I'm turning around. I haven't heard the idea. I haven't seen the person. It is yes to every single thing that is asked of us. We are known as the yes place.
Oh, very good. And you seem to have a very, what do you call them? Clientele? What do you call them?
Sometimes I just call them community members. Sometimes
community
it's
members.
Fledglings.
Seems to be very diverse as far as racially goes. Is it also age-wise?
Yes. So we're, like last night, for example, we had our weekly pitch competition called 99 Problems, but a Pitch Ain't One, and a 30-something black male tied with a 10-year-old white male. And we had about half female, half white versus half people of color in the competition. So, and I'm also proud our coding club records are, the oldest person was 83, the youngest person was 3.
Very cool. Very cool. I mean, it's awesome that you're doing this. Is there a life motto, a philosophy, something that drives you to kind of do this kind of a thing?
Yeah, I think that, well, I grew up in poverty. So I was born into poverty. Most people born into poverty stay in poverty for most of their life. And I had a series of kind of lucky events. I mean, it seems like my whole life was that privilege, the white privilege, you know, where even though I was born into poverty, I had a single mother who worked very hard for us. I had coaches. I was a wrestler. I had teachers and mentors and people to look up to that kept encouraging me and teaching me and keeping me focused on the goal. And the goal was to get a wrestling scholarship and go to college and study computer science.
As far as the basis of the Fledge, how did this kind of come about? Give me the background.
Well, I spent about 30 years traveling around the country, traveling around the world, really, building software systems, working for different companies, building my own companies and selling them. And we were having a very big impact with this systems theory that I was developing throughout that entire time. And when I sold my last software company, I started another software company the next day and getting ready to build that. And I realized, Lansing, all those mentors, teachers, all of that, that's the city that raised me. We've been in persistent poverty since the day I was born, even before that. And I wanted to do something here. So I took everything I learned from all the places I was in the world. I was an auditor for a quality management systems.
Well, I was reading through your resume there, and I was like, wow, this guy has done a lot of different things. Took you a while to focus in on this.
I've been, I've for almost 20 years, every day was like How It's Made, that show, where they teach you how bread is made or teach you how, wheels are made or whatever. So I got to see a lot of manufacturing. I got to see a lot of companies and businesses and how they operated. And they always seem to force everything. I mean, that's what the corporate world does. It forces everything. It creates timelines that are unreasonable, that stress people out for no reason at all. They try to control things that are not predictable, that aren't controllable. And we spend a lot of money, time, energy, and happiness, dealing with timelines and stuff like that. And I wanted to, throughout my whole career, create more autonomous systems that just kind of happened naturally.
Okay.
And I use a term biomimicry, where you basically ask the question, what would nature do? And I developed a lot of software based on that theory. I helped the Dubai municipality build their whole food safety system built on that. And it was very successful in the corporate world. And I wanted to try it in the community building world. And so the Fledge really came out of, can I take these kind of global corporate concepts and apply them to a community center, if that's what we've evolved into. I wanted to bring something special to community building.
Is this a concept that's unique to Lansing, or could you find this in other major U.S. cities?
Well, I think we're starting to find glimpses of it, especially in the last few years. I think that, what happened with COVID really made people have to step back and reevaluate a lot of things. What happened with George Floyd, the murder of George Floyd, really had people take a deep look at their fragility, their privilege, their, how racist we really are. So I think the world caught up with us in a lot of ways over the last 3 years. But to answer your question, I guess in two kind of stories. The first story is the street nurses of, sorry, I'm losing the, Vancouver.
Okay.
So the Vancouver street nurses, they created basically a mobile lab where they went out into the streets and helped people that had substance use disorder. And they gave them, Narcan. They'd test the drugs. They'd teach them even how to shoot up better. They'd do needle exchanges. And they made a movie called Bevel Up, and they premiered it. Their Michigan premiere was at the Fledge. And at the end, we talked about that. And one of them said there needs to be a Fledge on every corner in every city. And to me,
that's some validation right there.
Yeah, I mean, they're famous for the work that they've done. They stopped the spread of HIV. They stopped the spread of Hep C. They got the opioid overdoses in Vancouver down to zero. And, I was so in awe with them that when they said that, I'm almost tearing up right now. I still remember that. And then another thing is we're a regenerative community, and that means we're trying, what would nature do? It never sits still. It's always trying to either grow, whether that's slow or fast. It needs to replicate so that it kind of lives on. And that came from those street nurses. There's 10,000 major cities in the world. We have an effort to create 10,000 Fledges. We want one in every city. There was this guy who's been studying it for the last, 6 or 7 years. He moved back to Lansing because of, he needed to be by his parents. He started Googling regenerative communities and some characteristics about it, thinking he might be able to find one in Switzerland and be able to fly over there. And he rode his bike up to me and said, I can't believe you're 3 blocks from where I live. I've been looking for these regenerative communities, and you're the only one I've found so far. And he was doing a global search. And then I go to Los Angeles. My daughter lives out there, and I'm trying to kind of scope that out and see if we could create a Fledge there. And I am finding pockets of people that do something similar, but not quite there and not quite as complete as us.
Okay.
But the pockets are definitely growing.
Very cool. I'm not even sure I need to ask this because I feel like any job, anything we do in life, you need some sort of understanding that you're making a difference. Can you share a personal story? But you're listing it one after the other, where I think you realize how much of a difference you're making. But can you give me something where maybe that first time where you went, wow, I really am making a difference?
I think maybe the first time is when we were doing our coding clubs, and we would have parents drop off their son, and they might have the daughter with them. And I'd ask, would she like to stay for coding club? And the mother would giggle and say, oh, no, she doesn't write code. She's a cheerleader. And I would start to ask the girl then, well, do you want to come in and use the canvases and make some art and stuff like that? And the mother would be at ease with that. But once she got in there, she really wanted to be in coding club.
Right. And
to then see her 3 or 4 years later working in a STEM route towards what she's doing in high school, that felt really good. But you can jump all the way to kind of a different spectrum where, I've administered Narcan 5 times now. So that's 5 lives that have been saved.
Yeah.
So that's very, very tangible. But having those relationships and inspiring people to do what we're trying to do, whether it's, at an individual level or a organizational level, has been very, very rewarding. And there's a lot that I could list.
I would imagine there is, but it seems to me that you are much like me, where you find those personal connections. Those are the times that you find that, I'm making a difference and things are going well. This is good.
Yeah.
This is good. It takes more than just Jerry Norris to make this work. You've probably got coworkers, volunteers that you work with. What's their role in your world?
What the model tries to do is their role is to get back on track of what they were born to be. So we kind of have this hypothesis that we're born with a passion, and it might not be a passion to be a software developer, but it's a passion to be, focused on math and focused on systems and stuff like that. But throughout our life, we get knocked off tilt. It could be the mother saying, my daughter doesn't do code. It could be, a father saying, no son of mine's going to be an artist. It could be failing a biology class. It could be all these different things that knock you off tilt. And then you scramble and you have to, life is starting and you're 17 years old making these huge decisions. And, 4 or 5 years later, you realize you're not doing what you were born to do. You'd like to get back to that, but you have credit card debt, and maybe you have rent, and maybe you have a job that makes you live check to check. or maybe even worse, you probably, in Lansing, if you're a single mother, you live in poverty, 50% chance of living in poverty. So there's a lot of obstacles that keep you from recalibrating. And what I guess I'm trying to do is say, come in here, try to recalibrate. It's a safe place. We're going to make it as free as possible. You can still keep up with those obstacles as you need to, but come and do your thing. And I sit back and I watch 500 people a week doing something like that, and it's very chaotic. And most, the corporations fight against chaos. They want to control everything. But to me, I'm floating down a river trying to get to the edge, and instead of swimming upstream or swimming straight over to the side, I ride it out and I look for my opportunity, and I take that opportunity when it presents itself. So we take chaos and disorder and wait for the order to emerge, and then we harvest that order. So I don't have a plan really for most days. I mean, I have to have a schedule so that I can show up to your interview.
Show up to a podcast, yeah.
But I don't know what my day has in store for me. I know that I've got some things that I need to get done in the next few days, and I'll work towards those. But they will absolutely be disrupted today. My plan, Mike Tyson said everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And that seems to happen every day. But I love being a boxer, I guess. So I don't mind getting punched in the mouth. That's part of what keeps me moving.
And one little piece of advice you had in there that I absolutely loved, it was kind of at the beginning there, but was the idea that very often our life does not go as planned, but there's usually some reason that's happening. I think that's what you were hinting towards. Am I understanding that correctly?
Well, yeah. I mean, even those reasons, if you go into the corporate world and you look at the problem-solving models, they're going to tell you to do root cause analysis and get rid of the causes of those problems. But we live in a chaotic universe, a chaotic world, where if two molecules are falling over a waterfall, they're not going to end up next to each other. So things are very sensitive to these initial conditions. So even when we do that root cause analysis, we're often wrong because you would have said, why are we in poverty or whatever, or why are there so many poor people? But then COVID hits and creates even more of them, and we didn't really predict that.
Right.
But we had to ride it out. And so I think, my advice there is live your life, and just like you should learn to learn, you should learn to be comfortable in the world where you can't predict things.
Certainly.
And I think that's very applicable. We were started with the white male and realizing our privilege. I think that to decenter ourselves, especially as white males, we have to be uncomfortable. We have to not be in control.
I agree.
We do not have to speak over people. We can listen to people. They can teach us a lot. And the more we decenter ourselves and just ride it out, the more fulfilling life seems to get.
Yeah, it takes a little bit to get comfortable with that discomfort, too. I will add that. And, this has been a great conversation, and I want to keep it rolling a little bit longer, but I also want to help you kind of get the word out about the Fledge. So if somebody's wants to become a volunteer, become a part of what you're doing, what do they need to do?
Well, there's two main places that you can go. One is thefledge.com, and we have a get involved or volunteer link there. Or we're very active on Facebook, so we put our volunteer opportunities there as well. I guess there's three things. You can also walk through the front door at any random time that you want. And
add to Jerry's chaos.
And we'll figure out something to do. But with the volunteering part, that comes in two forms to us. Sometimes it's community service that somebody's ordered to do or they have to do for their honor roll or whatever. And it comes to people just wanting to get involved. And both ways, we really ask the volunteer what they want to do. It's not like, hey, this bathroom's dirty, go clean that.
Certainly.
It's more like, what's your passion? Do you want to volunteer in the music studios? Do you want to volunteer with the youth entrepreneurial program? Do you want to help us with our food production out in we call it an urban farm, but it's a community garden.
I understand. As somebody that's worked with volunteers for many, many years now, that is definitely the best approach too. What is your passion? What is it you want to do? And then help them to kind of get to that point. It's a learning opportunity for them, and at the same time, it's helpful to you. I believe that everybody needs a support staff outside of work. What's yours?
Well, my family first and foremost. It's my wife is the executive director of the Fledge Foundation, which is our nonprofit arm. And my children, my son lives here in Lansing. He has a great job, owns a house, all that stuff. My daughter's out in Los Angeles, so she gives me the excuse to be able to fly out there and visit her. I have another daughter who passed away about 5 years ago of a fentanyl overdose.
Oh, geez. So,
adding to the street nurse's statement that, and the reason I tear up so much around that subject, they all motivate me. They know when I'm, kind of losing it. Like yesterday, my brain was just clogged with so many thoughts, and if we had this interview yesterday, I'd be saying a lot of ums and huhs, and
that's all right. I sometimes do that still to this day, and I've been doing it for years.
And my wife recognized that, and she snapped me out of it. And it's that, but it's also the community itself. I can never escape the Fledge. I can't get away from it. So if I'm in my neighborhood on the south side, people are still asking me Fledge type questions. If I'm, probably go stand out in the front of the college here, people would start talking to me. Hey, your studio's still open. You still doing shows, whatever it is. So I gave up on trying to separate work and life because I can also leave at 2:00 and go have a drink with somebody or go have a coffee or whatever. So I really have integrated my community work, what we do at the Fledge, and my life in general all together towards one mission. So Lansing's my support system.
That's great. And as we're talking here, I'm starting to kind of get a vibe of probably your perspective on it, but I'm always curious to know how people feel about positivity. And obviously you've got your down moments. You're like anybody else. Do you believe that it is more of a learned trait or skill, or do you believe it's a natural thing for people?
Well, I think it's both. I think that you can have a genetic disposition to it and you can learn it. And I also think, especially those two things go together a lot of times because the generational trauma that some of us can have, especially if you're a black, brown, or poor person, that trauma your mother was feeling while you were in the womb it passes on to you, and you have these memories and these things that stress you out. And sometimes it's hard to be positive when you see such a dark, ugly, mean world around you. But at the same time, one of the things, I suffered from depression, that's a whole different story, back in my 20s. And I remember, some therapy, a little bit of medicine, kind of got me in the right mindset. But it took one single morning, I'll never forget it, where I looked in the mirror and said, I'm going to be happy today. And I've never looked back from that single moment. And being positive, it just makes things happen. And there's privilege in that statement, but the serendipity that comes around you, what you attract, people will try to veer away from the guy that's screaming in the middle of the street, and that negativity's on that continuum. So to me, it's the way you have to believe to really get through these tough times. And I know it's a big ask, and I know that I don't understand everybody's abilities there or what they're going through. But in the midst of a battle, the more positive and the more focused you can be on that positivity, that's where you're going to go.
That's a good perspective. I'm talking with Jerry Norris from The Fledge, and if you don't mind, I'd like to continue this into a second part of the show. But before we go, I want to go ahead and ask you one question. And this is the question I ask of everybody that happens to be here on Shining Stars. If you had the ability to snap your fingers and put one thought into the collective consciousness of the entire human race at the same time, what would it be?
The thought that I would want in everybody's mind is for you to imagine a world where you are surrounded by people who are healthy and prosperous and educated. They are not worried about food, safety, shelter, security. They are thinking, they've got everything covered. And how that opens up the conversations we have. We go from complaining about our roads and our politics and our government and the weather and all of that into talking about ideas and solving problems and being innovative. So when the student loans come up and you get all mad about it, think about the people who are going to start surrounding you. Their basic needs are going to be able to be met in a much better way. And look at all of the social programs that we have. They're not effective yet, but they're designed to surround us by people who have their basic needs met. And when that happens, imagine what us as a human race are going to be able to accomplish.
Remember,
we can all contribute something good to this world.
no matter how big
Or how small.
A simple smile
Or a friendly gesture.
Is all it takes.
to expand positivity.
1 inch further.
Thanks so much for listening to Shining Stars and, of course, sharing your time with me today. I'm Dedalian, and you can listen to this episode of Shining Stars on demand, along with other LCC Connect programs at lccconnect.org.